So we'll speak today about Ramakrishna. You see, he comes essentially to bridge the gap between human beings and God. Quite the gap to bridge. And of course, there were many in history, or let's say a selected few that were there to bridge this gap. But Ramakrishna did it recently, and he was very well documented while he was bridging this gap. We spoke about Ramakrishna. We have these two big YouTubes about Ramakrishna's life and about his teachings. So today we will focus more about his relationship with his disciples. In short, his life story: was born 19th century India, was a temple priest, very poor, and very, very devoted to God. And he attained enlightenment first through Kali, then through the awakening of Kundalini, then through Advaita Vedanta with Utapuri, then through Christianity with Sambhu Malik, then with Islam with Govinda Roy. So he attained enlightenment in all these fabulous ways. He attained enlightenment through divine madness, through adoring Krishna. He did all sorts of things and attained enlightenment in all sorts of ways. And after many years of spiritual fervor, he was just, sometimes he wouldn't sleep for 6 months. He wouldn't blink from the intensity of his spiritual awakening. In the last few years of his life, the disciples gathered, and he was teaching them for the last few years of his life, and then they set the world on fire. So we would look at the lives of his disciples. We will touch a few drunk disciples, 3, some disciples when they die, disciples that would see him as their favorite form of God, and we'll begin with some drunk disciples. One of them, the first one, Surendranath, was a bohemian, high class, married without children. He likes to womanize, likes to drink a lot of alcohol. And his friend Ram introduced him to Ramakrishna. Suresh fell in love completely with Ramakrishna and decided to devote more and more of his time and his life to Ramakrishna. But nevertheless, he loved drinking and he continued drinking. Now his friend Ram said, look, now everybody knows you're a disciple of Ramakrishna. You cannot continue drinking like that. People will say, look at this, he's a fake guru. His disciples are drunk all the time. It's not right. And Suresh says, no, I don't think Ramakrishna would mind. He's beyond all these things. I don't think he minds if I drink. So they made, oh, actually you can share. No, it's no big deal. We'll see him. We'll see for a moment. We'll see Suresh. That's him. So you see a bohemian high-class guy. And they said, okay, they make like a bet. He said, if Ramakrishna tells me to stop drinking, I'll stop drinking. We go there and we don't ask him anything. And if he mentions it, I will stop drinking. So they arrive. I think it's good with the slide. They arrive to Ramakrishna and they didn't tell him anything about their bet and their discussion. And as they enter the door, Ramakrishna takes Suresh and he says, come, my son. You have this problem with alcohol, don't you? You drink a lot, you get drunk, you make a fool of yourself. Why are you drinking this way? Before you drink, offer the drink to the Divine Mother and don't have regular ecstasy. Have spiritual ecstasy. But don't get drunk. Just drink a little bit. You will see if you drink like this and you first offer with devotion the wine to the Divine Mother, it will give you a different form of drunkenness, a spiritual drunkenness. And both of them were totally amazed, and he kept on drinking a little bit, just a bit, without getting totally drunk and falling on the floor, and he would consecrate it to the Divine Mother. Another disciple that would often get drunk was Girish. This is Girish Ghosh. And next to him, Kalipada, that we'll speak in a moment. So Girish Ghosh was an exceptional human being. He had a theater and he was a playwright. And he said, I drank so much alcohol, if you would put all the bottles one on the other, they are taller than the Himalayas. I drank so much. And he was a total genius. He would write a play, a whole play from scratch, sometimes at one go. For 26 or 28 hours, there would be 3 women writing down what he says, and he would play out the play, and that's it. It was done. He was a total genius. And one day he met Ramakrishna after becoming his disciple and basically devoting his life to Ramakrishna, while he was completely drunk. And drunk as he was, he said to Ramakrishna, why don't you be born as my son? After you pass away, can you please be born as my son? And Ramakrishna says, what's this nonsense? He says, no, I insist that you're born like this. I cannot be born as your son. It's not my dharma. And then Girish Ghosh started cursing him and speaking very bad and insulting him in front of everyone. It was very offensive and violent. Ramakrishna left. The disciples were amazed. And Girish Ghosh, the next day, he sat home and he cried the whole day, regretting what he did. He couldn't contain the pain of insulting the man he loved the most in such a way over such a stupid thing. And then the disciples of Ramakrishna, they came to him and he says, you know, in the story lives of Krishna, in the Bhagavatam, in other texts, it is said that a snake came to Krishna and offered him poison. Because he says, I'm a snake. All you gave me, Krishna, Lord of all things, is poison. So I offer it to you. So is Girish. Forgive him. All he has is all this bohemian life inside and alcohol. What he has inside is what he took out. Forgive him. And Ramakrishna says, yes, you are right. Let's go and buy cakes and go to Girish's house. So they bought cakes. They came. Girish was there, tormented with pain, feeling so guilty. And then he saw Ramakrishna there and he says, wow, indeed, you are a true master. And he cried with repentance. Girish was first very doubtful about Ramakrishna and then started believing in him. Once he started believing in Ramakrishna, he said, Ramakrishna, give me some tapas so I can attain God. And Ramakrishna said, fine. Remember God twice a day. Do some things to remember God twice or 3 times a day before eating. And it was like, by my grace, if you do this, you will attain God. And Girish says, no, I don't have the discipline to do this. And says, okay, then just once a day. Once a day. Just once a day, remember God, and somehow I'll do the rest. And Girish says, no, I'm sorry. I have to be honest with you. I can't do that also. He was very honest. And then Ramakrishna said, okay, if you can't do that, give me power of attorney. Give me your life. Give me power of eternity of your life, and I will take care that you will attain God. And Girish was like, great, you have power of attorney of my life. And he thought, well, this is wonderful. I don't have to do anything. I give myself to this God-man, and he will take me to enlightenment. And he said, from that moment, every time I wanted to do something bad, I couldn't. And every time there was something good to do, I would see myself doing it. I couldn't stop by doing it. He took over my life completely. And it was Girish, from all of the disciples of Ramakrishna, not Brahmananda, not Vivekananda, that first saw Ramakrishna is not just enlightened, he's an avatar. He's not just a Jivan Mukta, he's Krishna himself. And people say he's fanatic, he's crazy. He says, no, I'm sure. And then towards the end of Ramakrishna's life, on the 1st of January, 1886, so Ramakrishna passed away or entered Mahasamadhi in August. He was already quite sick with throat cancer, and there were 31 disciples in the house taking care of him in Kosipur. And Ramakrishna was feeling a little bit better that day. He came out of bed and he was walking in the garden. And then he said to Girish, Girish, Who do you say I am? You're spreading rumors about me. Who do you say I am? And Girish says, how can I testify who you are? Even the writer, the one who wrote the Gita and the one who wrote the Ramayana, they don't know who you are. They would have no words to describe you, implicitly indicating you are Rama and you are Krishna. And Ramakrishna was pleased and he touched him and he says, be enlightened. And he became enlightened. And then the next one came and he touched him, be enlightened. And the whole day he was walking back and forth, calling his disciples, and they enter Samadhi on this glorious Kalpataru day. They still celebrate it on the 1st of January every year in the Ramakrishna mission. And they all had visions. They enter Samadhi. One of them said, for 3 days I couldn't sleep. I would see Ramakrishna. His upper lip was above the sky and his lower lip was the earth. And he was shouting to God for 3 days. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't blink. I was in this total trance. I thought I'm losing my mind. I went to Ramakrishna and I said, please take this away. And he's back from Samadhi. And then he's like, oh my God, that was stupid. But they were just walking like mad people, 31. And they attained enlightenment and they became the teachers. This is why we know of Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna was not that let's say, popular in his life, but those 30 that got enlightened, they made a lot of waves after that. So from all his disciples, the most drunk, the most insulting, the most bohemian was the one who started this process of enlightenment. Next, we saw there Kalipada. We can see him again. So Kalipada was not a playwright. He was just a drunk, but a real drunk. Yeah, these drunks that are just on the street, you see him there with his wife with the picture of Ramakrishna above. An old picture, you can imagine. So with the mustache there. Good. He was a drunk on the street. His life was destroyed. Like a real broken human being. And he came to Ramakrishna and that's it. He took refuge in Ramakrishna and Ramakrishna was his everything. And then he started changing and he stopped drinking and he became more and more pious and a better husband and a better human being, and he became very devotional to Ramakrishna. And then they were going on a boat one day from Dakshineshwar to Calcutta, from Dakshineshwar where Ramakrishna was. And Kalipada, this drunk, kneeled and held Ramakrishna's feet and begged him for his grace. And Ramakrishna wrote a mantra on his tongue, took out his tongue. It's more common in India than it is in the West. He took out his tongue and he wrote this mantra on the tongue and he says, now you will repeat this mantra and the mantra will liberate you. And he says, no, that's not what I want. He says, what is it that you want? And he was holding on to his feet and there's a boat. Ramakrishna couldn't run away. He says, when I will die, there will be so much darkness and you must come there and take my hand, lift my hand and bring me to the light. And Ramakrishna said, fine, fine. Oof, you brought me here on this boat. I have nowhere to escape. You forced me to do that. Fine, I will come there. And when Kalipada died, all the disciples were around him and they were praying for him and so forth. He died, he took his last breath, and after dying, his body was dead, everything, you know, you poo when you die. If you didn't know, you do. Dead. A few minutes after he died, his hand was lifted because Ramakrishna came to take him from darkness to light. Another story with a death of a disciples is, and perhaps the second most important disciple, or perhaps the third. So Vivekananda and Sarada Devi as the great liberated disciples of Ramakrishna, and right after them, who was the president of the Ramakrishna order, Swami Brahmananda. He was a boy called Rakal. And at a very young age, he lived already with Ramakrishna, already at the age of 18 or 19. And he was extremely devoted to the master. Now, Ramakrishna would see visions of his disciples before they would come. And before Rakal came, he saw Krishna on a leaf floating on the ocean of Maya. And he realized a devotee of Krishna that lived with Krishna will appear. And when he came, he told the other disciples, look, this is Rakal. He was an actual, Rakal means, the name means a cowherd. And he was a cowherd at the time of Krishna. And if he finds out who he is, he will die at the spot. He would leave this earth. So please don't tell him who he is. And Rakal lived his life and attained very high states of enlightenment and was the president of the Ramakrishna mission. And then one of the guys, I think Surendra, the drunk, if I remember correctly, the first drunk, he was taking out a book of Ramakrishna's life, Suresh. And in that book was the story of Raka. And then the disciples saw the book, and he was about to publish it, and he says, no, you can't publish it. He will read the book, and he will realize who he is, and he will die. So he waited 20 years. Imagine all the income lost. 20 years he waited not to publish that book. And towards the end of his life, they were singing next to his bed. When he became the president, they called him Raja. They were singing next to his bed, oh, Rakal, Rakal, you became Raja, which is a song that is sung for Krishna. And then he realized, just before his death, that he was there with Krishna. And as he is passing away and he's between this world and that world, he tells the other disciples, I see myself floating on a leaf with Krishna on the ocean of Maya. Exactly the vision Ramakrishna had before he saw him. So this is Rakal. Next, we'll touch just briefly this great disciple, Gauri Ma. Gauri Ma, at the age of 7, already ran away from home to live with her guru. The parents caught her, but at a very young age, she left by herself to live in the Himalayas with the greatest masters. And she came back and she lived with one of Ramakrishna's disciples, and he told her, come and see this great master. And she said, oh, I met so many great masters in the Himalayas. If he wants me, let him pull me in. A few days passed. She was doing her daily worship at the temple, at the altar, in this house, in Balaram's house. And as she's doing the worship, a pair of feet appear on the altar. She saw a pair of feet, and she was shocked and amazed, and she touched them, and they were there. And she, in total trance, she started walking towards Dakshineshwar. And Balaram said, you're going to Dakshineshwar? You're going to see the master? And she didn't say anything. She just went to Ramakrishna. And when she arrived to Ramakrishna, he had a little wire, he had a little thread, and he was pulling a little thread like this. Extraordinary. She later became one of the biggest reformer and educators of women in India, following her spiritual mission. It was her last life, they said, that she attained liberation at death. Now, Ramakrishna would appear to his disciples according to their Ishtadevata. How they would see God, they would see Ramakrishna. He was very poor and hungry and crazy in his days when he was doing his practice. And he said, Kali, find me a rich man to take care of him. And the rich man was Mathur Babu. Mathur Babu was a very, very rich man and the owner of the temple there. And he saw Ramakrishna walking. And he said, when I saw you walking one way, you were Shiva. And when you were walking the other way, you were Parvati. And he fell at his feet and became his disciple there and then. Another disciple of his, Gopal Ma, would worship baby Krishna. And that was her main, there you see her, Gauri Ma with Sister Nivedita, with one of the Western disciples. And when she would arrive to Dakshineshwar, once she arrived to Dakshineshwar, before she even entered the room, Ramakrishna started crawling on the floor like a baby and entered the state of being baby Krishna, Gopala, as baby Krishna is called. And then he entered this position and entered Samadhi on all fours with one arm up, which is the position that normally baby Krishna or Gopal is painted. And when she came, she saw baby Krishna in him. A Christian saint, an Indian Christian from the Quakers, he saw a vision when he was praying to Christ. Christ told him to go and see this man, and he saw the image of Ramakrishna, and he searched everywhere until he saw a picture of Ramakrishna at one place and was directed to Dakshineshwar. Ramakrishna says, I keep seeing this vision of this man in an orange robe that I don't know. Why do I see this vision? And then this man in an orange robe comes in and says, I am an adorer. I respect all gods, but my path is with Christ. And Ramakrishna started laughing and jumping around and played and shaked his hands. And he says, you will attain, you will attain. And then he entered Samadhi in the position where Christ is, you know, this position of the blessing. And the disciple of Christ entered Samadhi kneeling in front of him. And he saw Jesus Christ. And he attained his enlightenment. Even he was a Christian, he attained his enlightenment through the grace of Ramakrishna.